Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start our Nash County Board of Commissioners meeting for November the 6th. It is customary for us to start our meeting with a prayer and then the pledge of allegiance to the flag. You're welcome to join us for the prayer, or you're welcome to take a moment of silence of your own, or maybe have your own prayer, whichever you so desire. I'd ask Mr. Dan Combs if he would lead us in prayer, and Mr. Outlaw on the pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you again for another beautiful day, Lord. We just pray that you would forgive us when we take you so much for granted for all the things you do for us. As we gather here this morning, Lord, let us remember those that are less fortunate than we are today. Let us remember the shooting victims in Texas, Lord. Let us remember shooting victims everywhere, Lord, and we just pray that you would intervene somehow and change people's minds and let them learn how to love you and love and respect one another. Lord, we just pray now that everything we do here this morning would be pleasing to your sight, and we do it for the citizens of Nash County, and that we would do what is right. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Would you join me for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to ask permission of the board to add one agenda item under item number 7, and it would be a request for a fireworks display that's coming up prior to us meeting again. Anyone have any problem with me doing that? No. Seeing none, we'll add that as item number 7A. Next on the agenda is normally our approval of minutes. If you recall, we had a record public hearing at our last meeting at the first of the month on a solar farm that lasted, if I remember right, 4 or 5 hours. And I understand we are still, and of course that type agenda item, quasi-judicial, we have to have minutes that are verbatim or every word, and staff is still working on those, so we will approve those at our mid-monthly meeting if we could. And I would just like to say, in my 16 years as being a commissioner, this is the first time that we haven't approved our minutes at the first meeting, and I'm saying that as a very sincere compliment to our clerk. And at this point, I'd like for the board to give her a hand for the job she does do. Thank you very much, and thank you, Janice, for what you do for us. Next on the agenda is item 5, and it is a public comment session. And this is an item on our agenda in which anyone that's in the audience that wishes to speak to this board is welcome to do so now. If it's an item that's on the agenda a little later, we would ask for you to wait to that public hearing or whatever the agenda item may be. But it's certainly not on the agenda. You're welcome to speak at this time. We do have a sign-up period prior to the meeting, and it goes right up to then. And I had 2 people to sign up this morning, and I think by little arrow, Ms. Finch says that you would like to go first. Is that correct? Okay, welcome. If you would state your name and address when you come up, and glad to see you again this morning.
Mr. Chairman, before I start, I have a few handouts for the commission now.
That would be great.
I'll just give them at one end, and they can pass them around.
All right, that'll be good.
Mr. Chairman, it's going to be difficult for me to say everything I need to say in 5 minutes, and I don't know if y'all allow for any extra time, but if there's any possibility of that, I will make that request. I will make every effort to proceed to address it. I'm here, I want to raise with you, the Nash County Commissioners, the issues with the Atlantic Coast Pipeline that were recently taken up by the Wilson County Commissioners about the lack of forthrightness and dishonesty by the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and how it has been dealing with landowners and then with the county. And I am just going to move right into the big problems with this process. Dual Land Services, who's been handling The settlements with landowners is an out-of-state company. It's from Louisiana, and they are not licensed land surveyors in North Carolina. They have never been licensed. Marvin Winstead filed a complaint against them in 2015, and I kept thinking they would come forward and say, oh, but we've subcontracted with licensed surveyors in North Carolina. They have not. All the surveys that have been done on the Atlantic Coast Pipeline have been done by unlicensed surveyors. This is a very serious problem. I spent 2 hours with the General Counsel of the North Carolina Board for Licensing of Surveyors and Engineers last week, and I am filing a massive complaint against them, and even though they've already had complaints. Also, GAI, and I passed out there's a map there for you of a plat. GAI is the engineers on there. That GAI Consultants is a Pennsylvania company, and I just want to remind you, Doyle Land Services from Louisiana, these are not Nash County people they're hiring. GAI we got engineers in Nash County, we got good engineers right here in Nashville. GAI is a company from Pennsylvania, so they've brought people in from out of state to do all this work down here in Nash County. GAI Consultants is not a licensed engineer. They are not licensed land surveyors. I want you to note in the upper orange corner how all of these, I have gone through the 150-some easements that have been filed in Nash County, and every single one of them has the language on there that I've got marked. This map is not a certified survey and has not been reviewed by a local government agency in compliance with any applicable land development regulation. If you look at the statutes for NCGS 47-30, it spells out the law for plats and subdivisions mapping requirements. This is not in compliance. They are filing it under an exception, minimally, and it's questionable if they fit that slight exception. And this ties right into the point that the Wilson County Commissioners have raised on PIPA, that this pipeline information company will come in later after the fact and tell you, and you may be here and you may not be here because it'll probably be several years, that you've got to have a 1,300-foot industrial buffer down that, called a consultation zone. It's been called the dead zone along that pipeline because of the risk. And this is very unfair that this has never been mentioned at any of the meetings. I went to every meeting that I found out about after 2015. I have talked to everybody that went to the meetings before. No one ever mentioned this. Now, Atlantic Coast Pipeline has come back and said, oh, but that's not us. But FERC hires PIPA to write the regulations for the pipeline. And Atlantic Coast Pipeline knows about it, and you should know about it. We should know about it. The landowner should know about it. It's significant. They're coming in here and taking property by eminent domain. Ms. Barnes, his husband, has signed off on lots of parcels of land already, and they're taking 100 feet, but this is 1,300 feet. They will be denied the use of their property. This is significant. Marvin Winstead's house is 250 feet from the pipeline after this. It used to be 600 feet until they rearranged it, and so he's going to be in this industrial zone, and there are people that are even closer to the pipeline than that. So I stress to you the importance of looking at the, I had this, trying to go through it very fast. Another issue with Doyle Land Services is they have been coming to landowners they come in as realtors, and they have brought in realtors licensed in North Carolina. They have brought in people from out of state who became licensed in realtors in North Carolina, and they have subcontracted realtors in North Carolina. And they come to the landowner and doing what's called dual representation. Please remember that, D-U-A-L. Dual representation is when the realtor represents the buyer and the seller. To give you an analogy, if you're selling your house and you list it with a realtor, and then that realtor that you listed it with brings you the buyer, he's representing both of you. Before he can proceed with that, he has to have you sign a form that's put out by the North Carolina Board of Realtors consenting for him to represent both of you. And before he does that, or she, they are supposed to explain to you what it means, and they're supposed to do it before negotiations begin. Dual Dual Land Services has been going in, and they submit this dual representation form. They don't explain it. They mailed a packet to my mother with the form in it, and the woman called her up and told her she needed to sign all those papers and send them back with little stickies all over it. They never met with her. They never explained it to her. You know, most of you know my mother, who just turned 90. She's sharp as a tack, and she said, I ain't going to do that. I know better than that. You know, but that's the way they were talking to her. And they're not all of our citizens in Nash County are savvy enough, like my mom, who's had 6 eminent domain cases, to know better than to sign that thing. This is serious, how our landowners and citizens are being taken advantage of. And it's not just the landowners. Just 2 months ago, we got a landowner sitting in this room today, where Atlantic Coast Pipelines, or Dual Land Services, went on their property while they were on vacation and dug up stuff and put flags. And their pipeline is not even scheduled to go on their property. It is next door to a piece of property that's going on, but they went out there and dug up all the markers for their property line and moved them and put flags up. They were on vacation. They were never notified. They were not told. No notice was put on the door. A clear case of criminal trespass. And they had trouble they figured out who it was. They had trouble finding out exactly the name of the people who it was. They were given the names of 2 companies. They're land surveying type companies, both from out of state. Just want to remind you, one was J.D. Johns from Montoursville, Pennsylvania, and some company called the Thrasher Company, and I've checked, and neither one of them are licensed land surveyors in North Carolina. Landowners have a reasonable expectation that if you're going to be told that a surveyor is coming on your land, especially when they come on there, when they don't ask you, they don't get your permission, without your consent, that it is a licensed land surveyor.
Ms. Spence, you're at about 7 minutes now. If you can
Okay.
wrap it up, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I have some very good, a lot more important information for each of you. I want to tell you, I'm going to give all of you my number, and I'm going to try to stay around to see each of you, because I know we can't meet collectively. I don't want to violate any open meetings laws, but I do want to say this. There's been a lot of lying in this pipeline process, and you can't keep looking the other way. It is time for the Nash County Commissioners to take a stand against the pipeline and to at least challenge the methodologies they have used. If someone else lies and you know it and you acquiesce, you're lying too. Mr. Lamb knows that my daughter went to Duke University, and there's a professor over there, his daughter's there, that's written books on the honest truth about dishonesty, lying. All those books were written before we had our current administration. And we have to stand up to dishonesty. We have to stand up to dishonesty. Please don't keep looking the other way and putting it off, and I'll take it under advisement. I'll have for you today a draft of a resolution. I will plead with you to please consider it. I would please for you to allow me more time so that I would not be so rushed, because I do have a lot more material. I have reviewed almost every easement agreement in this county. And one more very important fact. The easements agreements in Nash County are not signed by the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. The easement agreements that Johnny Barnes signed are not signed by the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. I have only found 2 that were signed by the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. And that's very important, because there's an indemnity agreement in there. Not always would you have the grantee sign an easement, but here the grantee is making promises. They make 3 promises in all those agreements. They make a promise for indemnity, they make a promise to restore the land back like it was after they get the pipeline, and they make a promise to, when the pipeline's removed, they'll take up the pipeline. They're not signed by Atlantic Coast Pipeline. I'm sorry, Mr. Durham's got I tell you, I have talked to 10 lawyers. My husband's a real estate lawyer. This is unconscionable. I'm sorry, but I plead with you to take a hard look at this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker is Marvin Winston. Morning, Mr. Winston.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. If you remember, I've appeared before you during the last 2 monthly meetings, and I would repeat my request, which is an echo of what Ms. Finch has just said. Please pass a resolution against the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. If you care about Nash County, if you represent the citizens of Nash County, you will pass a resolution against this. I'm very pleased that our sister county to the south office, Wilson County, passed their resolution asking for openness and transparency. That is the case that we cannot say exists at the present time. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline has engaged in chicanery. As a landowner, my property will be devastated. My farm will, it'll be a waste of time for me to go out after a pipeline is put through it and plant a crop and expect to have a profitable crop. It will be devastated. To me, it's an insult when a land agent stands there on the shoulder road and looks at me and says, you got nothing to worry about. We'll landscape your farm and it'll look as good as it ever did. I can show you pictures. I can take you to a farm in Johnston County where a pipeline was installed 20 years ago. To this day, the crops are still stunted. There is no way what the companies say is truthful. And it's just appalling to me that the companies just think they can say anything. If you just merely look back through newspaper reports, they constantly change their story. You know, it never made any sense that this pipeline was going to terminate in Pembroke, in a community called Prospect Hill in Robinson County. Now, one of their vice presidents, almost in a gloating fashion, says, we never intended to stop in Robinson County. It's going into South Carolina. Do some simple math. They were telling us, one of their representatives stood right here in August of 2014 in this very chambers and said that 1.5 billion cubic feet per day would come to eastern North Carolina. Now, one of their vice presidents is saying, we can bring out almost 1 billion cubic feet per day into South Carolina. Well, what happened to eastern North Carolina's 1.5 billion cubic feet? My math says that means barely 0.5 billion cubic feet are coming to eastern North Carolina. They promised, right here in this room, their representative said there would be as many as 13 taps between the Virginia line and the termination point in Robinson County. So far, there are only 3. And they are not true taps. They are all for Piedmont Natural Gas, one of the partners in this venture. Individual communities, industries are not getting taps. It's all that carrot of incentive. If you just get this pipeline, it's going to bring the magic jobs. They're not, it's just propaganda. I ask you to please, as Ms. Finch said, pass a resolution against this pipeline, stand up for the citizens of Nash County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Winston. Next item on our agenda, item number 6. Got the pleasure this morning of having Stacy introduce a new employee to us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
As commissioners are aware, the county began advertising in April for a business developer recruiter, with the title later changing to retail economic developer. We assembled an interview team, which included Spring Hope Town Manager Jay Kim, Elgin Lane, Patsy McGee, and myself. After conducting 6 initial interviews, the team invited 3 candidates back to offer us a presentation. The team narrowed the candidates to 2 and asked County Manager Z. Lamb to make the final decision. I'm happy to introduce to you today Susan Ball Phelps. She is a graduate from North Carolina State University with a bachelor's degree in tourism and commercial recreation. She was most recently a special events coordinator with the City of Rocky Mount, where she developed, implemented, and managed over 30 public events annually, which attracted anywhere from 500 to more than 8,000 participants. She's skilled at managing budgets, marketing, advertising, and providing excellent customer service. Susan has a good reputation with local businesses and has generated over $50,000 annually in sponsorships for her programs. Prior to moving in the area in 2014, Susan served as the executive director for the Granville County Tourism Development Authority. She developed and managed business and marketing plans for the authority and oversaw the day-to-day operations of the visitor center. Susan encouraged new development for the tourism sector by developing relationships with retail businesses and acting as a public relations liaison for the county. Her past employment also includes functioning as a marketing and tourism marketing manager for the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau. There, she assisted with the development of promotional materials, marketing media, social media, and an area destination discount card, and she updated the national tourism information websites about Raleigh. Susan has worked extensively with database systems and has conducted marketing research about area attractions and tourism activities. Susan also has work experience in the hotel industry as an area sales coordinator and event coordinator for Summit Hospitality Group. There, she gained valuable knowledge and contacts in the hospitality trade and worked extensively in the social, military, education, religious, and fraternal market. I am pleased to introduce to you today Susan. I look forward to working with her in her new position. She'll be located in this building on the 3rd floor in the manager's suite, and I welcome you to come by and say hi to her.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Board, I had the occasion several times to work with Susan in the past with her former job. She made several presentations before the TDA, and she can be persuasive, I will tell you that. Did a great job there, and I certainly look forward to it. It's unusual to get a job that you do not have shoes to fill because it's a brand-new job, but I can promise you there's a lot of expectations from our towns throughout the county in this position. They were very pleased that the board approved it during our current budget year, and we certainly look forward to working with you. And I may call you Ball from time to time because you were Ball when you got here, but I'll try to learn the new name that you have. And welcome aboard, and certainly look forward to working with you and wish you the best on both of your new projects that you have going at the time.
Thank you very much. Look forward to working for the county. I'm really excited.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
All right, we're now on item 7, which is a presentation by Tyler on a idea of providing some parking signs for veterans on Nash County properties. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. All right, hello. Once again, my name is Tosh David, Nash County Veteran Service Officer. I was up here today because Mr. Rick Thomason has brought to my attention, basically, and I probably should have thought about this before, but he did first, coming up with some veteran parking signs for the veterans that we have coming here. At first, came up with the idea with the Purple Heart, and then we decided we wanted to make it more inclusive. Could you flip it over for me? And this is the second sign that the Marine Corps, the North Carolina Marine Corps League has come up with. This is the sign that we came up with here just within this county, as far as just getting some veterans to be able to have closer parking, that way they can more easily access the building. A lot of the veterans I do see are disabled, or they're rather elderly and just could really use a closer parking spot, basically, because parking, as I'm sure all of you know, becomes rather tight around here during the daytime. Let's see, what is the cost per sign for you? $20. $20 per sign over here, and I didn't get it from you. Same thing? Okay, so it's $20 per sign, and then for what other counties have you had already?
Stanley County and Harnett County have already purchased signs,
Right, and how many signs did they get?
130.
Okay, they got a lot of signs. I don't know if we're gonna get that many, but but if we could purchase a few signs and just use them, basically, I would greatly appreciate it. It would show the veterans that we care here at Nash County. It'd be an easy, relatively inexpensive thing to do, and I think it would go a long ways overall. And once again, this was Mr. Thomason's idea, not my own, so I don't want to take any type of credit for it, but that is basically it. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add? No, go ahead.
Got a nice little presentation for you.
Oh, hey.
Come on up to the mic.
I didn't even know this. Yes,
Rick,
please
if
do.
you would.
Thank you.
And Tyler, we might have a few questions if you would stay close by.
Yeah, I have some.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Nash County Board of Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I realize the board is on a schedule and will be attending to critical matters, so I will be brief. I am Rick Thomason, a lifelong resident of Nash County and the Senior Vice Commandant for the Department of North Carolina Marine Corps League. This morning, I'd like to propose to you the acquisition of signs to be placed in strategic locations within the parking lots of all Nash County buildings. These signs, as you see, depict the parking spot is reserved for a veteran who has attained a Purple Heart through being wounded in combat. This is not a handicap sign. It's not intended to be depicted as such. This is to acknowledge the heroic action of a veteran, whether active duty, retired, National Guard, or Reserve, who at one point in his or her life wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. John 15:13 states, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down their life for their friends." It was their honor and duty to protect the country, their family, and friends they so loved. But now there are too many people in this country who no longer understand that. Too often we become engrossed in our day-to-day obligations and fail to remember that these are veterans and what they were willing to do so that we may enjoy the freedom and lifestyle so envied by the rest of the world. With these signs, we will once and forever remind them. We will never forget. These signs are produced right here in Nash County at the request of the Department of North Carolina Marine Corps League. To date, 130 of the combat wounded signs have been placed throughout the state. 30 delivered to Harnett County for their buildings and lots, 12 to Stanley County for theirs, and the remainder scattered through VFW Post, American Legions, and businesses. The veteran parking sign you see The veteran parking sign you see is the first one produced and has been seen only by you. The cost of either sign is a nominal $20 each. The quality, clarity, and detail are exceptional. I propose you purchase one of each or more for each parking lot utilized in Nash County. I offer no installation service, only the sign. The sign will be installed by your personnel to your specifications. Delivery would take place within 2 weeks of payment to the location of your choice within the county. Thank you for this opportunity to address the board for this proposal, and do you have any questions?
Any board member have any questions of Rick at this time?
Well,
Belfield?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Are we proposing for all Nash County government buildings or just here at the administrative building in the courthouse?
I'm going, Mr. Belfield asked the manager to address what the proposal actually is, if he's prepared to, or you want to get back with it, or where are we at with that? It's not fair to ask Rick that, I don't think.
Yeah, I was just wondering
Sure.
what you
My
are
proposal,
proposing.
sir, is to get as many of these signs out as I can,
Okay.
preferably to each governmental building within Nash County.
Okay.
That's my personal
Yeah,
preference.
yeah, well, you answered the question.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here this morning. Mr. Lamb, you want to guide us a little bit on what our next step should be with this?
Just approve one or both of those signs to be put up at the various county buildings. And we'll take the ball and run with it.
Do we have an idea how many county buildings we have, or have we got that far yet?
Have you estimated, Tyler?
I have not put together, I was going to leave it up to you all if you want to go that far.
Sure.
I was just really advocating for this building in particular because my office is here, is where I'd really like to get it done, but I'd love to see it at the other centers as well.
Okay.
You know, maybe just one sign per would be pretty sufficient, I think.
Yeah, we've got money already budgeted, but we just wanted y'all's input, and so we can assess that. And my guess is we'll have, two signs at most of our county buildings, if not all.
So the idea is that we would put one of each of these up. Is that your thought?
That was my thought.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Ms. Richardson?
And we're talking about making them stationary.
Oh, yeah.
Permanent.
Oh, yes.
Most definitely so. Ms. Richardson?
No, I was just thinking of maybe one at each individual building, but when you think of the parking lot out back here, that's larger than most. So I would think in the process, and I know it's a working process, that might take a few more signs than, say, the health department or something like that.
Right,
I don't
yes,
know.
ma'am, I would.
So I know that's in the process, so you'll work that, but I think the signs, they are good and well-deserving, and we appreciate it.
Mr. Outlaw?
Rick, was there any reason why the sign on the other side was specific to Bronze Star? Why not include Purple Heart
Yes, sir.
Medal of Honor, even though most of those are not living, but there are some Medal of Honor winners out there.
Yes, sir. How many Medal of Honor winners do we have in Nash County?
Well, how many may come through Nash County is my
Yes, sir.
concern.
But how many veterans with Purple Heart is going to come see Tyler? How many are?
Well, I don't know that. I'm just saying you've got combat wounded. I think it, in my opinion, and I'm a military veteran, I was not wounded in the military, but I think it would be appropriate to recognize Purple Heart, Bronze Star, and any military veteran that had been recognized for service above and beyond the call of duty. That's just my opinion, but I'm not opposed to it. I just don't think it's all inclusive with what we should be recognizing.
I agree. This is a collective catch-all.
That's
Yes.
my point.
Qualifies to park here.
Yeah, my personal opinion is I'd rather see us put 2 of those than 1 of each. That's just my personal opinion.
Since 2012, we've had 40 million veterans that's coming in and going out of armed services. That would give parking to 40 million veterans.
Well, we've got over 20 million veterans still out there today.
Yes, sir, there are. And that would say that, any veteran can park there.
Yes.
This sign says, you are a special veteran.
We've got 8,000 in Nash County.
Yes, sir. These tell them that this veteran is different from the rest of them.
But if I'm a Purple Heart winner and I come up, does that mean I didn't get the Bronze Star, but I'm a Purple Heart, so I can't? I mean, that's,
Literally, this
Yeah.
would be for a Purple Heart owner. This
Yeah.
would be for any of the
Yeah.
40 million that have been since 2000.
that's my opinion.
This one would be for a Purple Heart owner.
Yeah.
Well, I think the board should move forward in deciding how we want to move forward with this. Mr.
Yeah.
Bellfield, you have another question or comment?
No, I was just gonna make a comment based on what Commissioner Outlaw was saying. I was just wondering if it would be appropriate just have a general sign there for your veterans.
Right. Yes.
We put posts on both sides. You park on this side, park on that side. Your parking places out here have a median, a divider between them. You can put up one post with a sign on each side. One side be for your regular veteran, the other side be for your Purple Heart veteran.
Right.
They would only take one post. 2 parking spots.
I would
Right.
just encourage your group to consider for future, maybe a combat wounded sign that was really all-inclusive of all combat wounded, potentially combat wounded.
This sign is going to now be proposed to the rest of the people too. This is the first one produced. I had this one made, when I found out.
Well, it's a great idea. I just think it could go a little bit further.
You picked it up yesterday. Sending this out through the state also.
Right. Well, either way, I think it's a really good idea. I plan on getting more, depending on what style we want to go with, but just veteran parking in general done. But if we could just have like 1 or 2, say, of the Purple Heart ones, just to recognize those veterans in particular, due to the larger amount of sacrifice that some of them may have made. That would be nice as well. I don't know if you have to put them up at every county building, more so just veteran parking at most county buildings, but for here, I'd appreciate like 1 or 2 of the Purple Heart ones.
Tyler, what's the big difference between your sign and this second sign that Rick has there?
Nothing
Is there
really,
any difference?
It's just, that's the Marine Corps, it's the North Carolina Marine Corps League sign that they came up with, and this is the one that we came up with the county. It's very
There's
similar.
nothing about that sign that dictates this for Marines only.
No.
Okay.
It's just from the Marine Corps League, that's all.
I got
At the bottom of this, you see it says Department of North Carolina Marine Corps League. It also gives the Department of North Carolina Marine Corps League website.
I got it.
www.ncmco.org.
Sure.
And over to the bottom right-hand corner, you see a QR code, quick
Right.
response code. I'm not as tech savvy as a lot of people, young people like Tyler, know about this QR code stuff. But young people nowadays do not take notes. They don't write things down. They pull out their smartphone and they take a picture of it, I'll look at this later, and they go back. When they bring in their smartphone and they take a picture of this QR code automatically asks them, do you wish to go to this link? So a veteran takes a picture of this and he goes to that link, and when he clicks that link, it immediately takes him to the Department of North Carolina Marine Corps League,
Okay.
where all the links to all the veteran services are located. He can immediately address any need he has, whether it's with the Marine Corps League, the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, Air Force, any branch. He can immediately address those needs right there.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
What we'll do, we'll meet in the next couple days and map out a plan for where we will put each of these type, and
Good idea.
and report back to y'all by email or at the next meeting. But it should probably be by email by the end of the week.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mr. Chairman, I support that, whatever they come up with that's inclusive of the comments that you've heard here today. I certainly support veterans. In fact, I'm one myself. I'm not a combat veteran, but I did serve in the military.
Board okay with Mr. Lamb's suggestion?
Right.
Yes, sir.
We assure you, Rick, that we'll get it done. Just need a little bit of advice from staff, spend a little bit of time with it. But, and we'll certainly let you know what we end up doing. And greatly appreciate you being here today. Wonderful idea. Tyler, do you have something else, sir?
I'm sorry, what?
You have anything else?
No, sir, that's it.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for hearing what I have to say.
We're now on the item that I added, which is 7A, which is a fireworks display request. Mr. Fisher, you presenting that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, come forward. Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to say I apologize for this not being on your agenda this morning.
It is on our agenda, sir.
Okay. I appreciate you adding it this morning. We have received a permit request for a pyrotechnics display for a wedding on November 18th at Rose Hill Plantation in a designated site on the site that's been used for previous shows. And under North Carolina General Statute 14-413 requires approval by the county commissioners, and the paperwork is in order, and we recommend approval.
All right. Didn't realize it was for a wedding. We sure do not want to stand in the way of that. Any questions from board members? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Richardson, second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Tell the couple there.
Thank y'all.
Welcome to move forward with the wedding, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Budget amendments, Ms. Wood?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, the following budget amendments are presented for the board's consideration for fiscal year 17-18. The first two are with Controlled Substance Fund. This budget amendments to budget, first budget amendments to budget additional funds to complete the repayment of to the county from the Controlled Substance Fund for the purchase of the Sheriff's Narcotics Building. It's $25,000. No additional county funds are needed. Second budget amendment within Controlled Substance Fund is to purchase, is for $26,500 to purchase investigative equipment needed within the narcotics unit. The next budget amendment is within the Asset Forfeiture Fund. This budget amendment is to budget additional funds for law enforcement and investigative training to maintain certifications and updates on trends in law enforcement. It's $15,000, and no additional county funds are needed. Next item is within the Sheriff's Office. This budget amendment appropriates donated funds by the Sheriff's Citizens Advisory Committee to provide items for needy families and other services. It's $7,980. No additional county funds are needed. Next item is within Emergency Services. This budget amendments to budget additional Homeland Security grant funding. It's a continuation grant from the Salamander Accountability and Credentialing System, Domestic Preparedness Region 4, $17,545. No additional county funds are needed.
Any questions, board members, on either one of these budget amendments? Seeing none, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Wells, second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Woods. Next item on the agenda, which is item number 9, would be board appointments. Stacey?
Good morning again.
Good morning again.
The following appointments need to be considered. The Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, the Upper Coastal Plain Council of Government has requested one more member be added to this committee. The term is ongoing as long as the person is willing to serve. Commissioner Wells has recommended Sherry Williams, and her application was included in your agenda packet.
All right, any questions on this appointment from board members?
I make a motion we accept.
Motion by Ms. Wells,
Second.
second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign?
And we continue to have a vacancy on the Consolidated Human Services Board for the psychiatrist member.
And I do know from reading my minutes, Ms. Barnes is still working on that one.
I have made that request known to the hospital board and
Right.
others.
I saw that. Should be able to get one there if we can anywhere. That all you had?
That's all.
I'd just like to remind the board that our next meeting, this board will be charged with appointing a new chairperson for the ABC board. If you would be thinking about that, the current chairman, Mr. Hill, will come off at the end of December, and therefore we will be responsible for appointing that new chairperson. I've had some interest expressed for that by one lady already, but if y'all look at your board members and just see, it kind of boils down that we will have not a tremendous amount of experience on there because of several rotating off at the same time. But just look at that so we can make that designation in January. All right, the next
Thank you.
item, excuse me.
Thank you.
Excuse me, December. Thank you, Mr. Bellfield. Monthly tax report, Mr. Wren.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Getting to
Chairman.
you earlier than we normally do. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad I showed up on time. But yes, of course, the tax report is for informational purposes, and it requires no action, but I will answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions on the tax report? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 11, tax refunds.
Yes, sir, I do need your approval on that to disperse the funds.
Just look at that right quick. I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw,
Second.
second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item, number 12, is commissioner comments. I believe we're going to have a new record today, on time.
I like these kind of meetings.
Amazing.
And Ms. Richardson will leave very happy today, I might add.
Only one.
Comments from board members? Either you gentlemen have a comment that you're discussing? Mr. Bellfield, Mr. Outlaw?
No, I was just looking, Mr. Chairman, at the ABC board, and
Right.
one of the individuals that's represented on the list that I have, I don't even think it's here any longer, so we might want to look at this list and make
Okay.
sure it's updated.
Sure, we can do that.
I
And,
thought we had taken care of that. We were talking about John Hazer, because he moved to Wake County.
I'm not sure.
I'll pull it and we can.
He's been gone 2 years.
Oh, no, well, he's not on there anymore. We did take care of that, but we have 5 members currently, I know.
Yeah.
He's on this list here.
Right,
We're
okay.
going to look at those that are on the, to consider a chairman.
Got you. You would make sure that,
I will.
as well as all the rest of them
Yes.
are current, because we kind of use that as our Bible on these appointments now. It's been a very useful tool for all of us. All right, no comments from commissioners. Only thing that Chairman would like to say is, I still have a concern about our communication with the school board, and I've asked Mr. Outlaw to join me in another meeting with their chair and vice chair, and I've got that, I'm going to talk to Mr. Outlaw today. We got notified over the weekend that we did not get the grant for Red Oak Elementary School. I got a note from Chairperson Wilson on Saturday this round, but they indicated that we had a very well put together application, and that we should certainly resubmit the next round, which I understand from Mr. Lamb will be in 6 months, and then we would have another opportunity next year. I'd just like to plow forward with the Board of Commissioners and working with the school board to let them know that we certainly hope to begin working much sooner than later on that project and be prepared, because it just seems like when you got your ducks in a row, when grant money is available, you're much more apt to be able to get funded for something. And so, that's what we'll be talking to them about here in a few days, just as soon as I can get it scheduled. And if you have any board member that has any other concern, with the school board, if you would let Mr. Outlaw or myself know, we'd certainly bring that up at that point in time. I still want to get that committee set up, working on capital improvements, that we've talked about for a while. Mr. Belfield?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I'd like to meet along with the two of you, but if you want it, just narrow it to those two, fine.
Well, we will, in that meeting, we're gonna be scheduling in the meeting that you're speaking of, that you would be included on, to move forward with these capital improvements.
Chairman Davis.
Yes, ma'am.
I attended the meeting this past Thursday night, which was the second one that they had on the Willoughby thing. A
That's
lot
the
of
one,
concern there.
Senator
Also,
Bryant had.
there was a lot of concern there about the school board not, someone from the school board not being at the meeting, the superintendent, no one else. But they said they had a meeting, and they would promise that at the next meeting, that they would have a plan that they would bring back to that community. I'm not sure what it is.
That's the Willoughby School opportunity. I appreciate you attending that. I would like to have gone, but I had to be in Wilmington that night, but, I know
It was
Senator
very
Bryant.
well attended.
Yeah, I know Senator Bryant seems to have taken that as a personal goal of hers to work on that. Any other comments from commissioners? Manager report?
Yeah, I don't have too much this morning. It is with sadness that I report that Nell Jones, who recently retired from the county after 40 years, 32 years of which was with emergency services. Anybody that's ever been down to that office, she was the one that greeted you. She did die on Saturday. Her funeral arrangements are as follows. Tuesday, tomorrow night, from 6 to 8 at Cornerstone Funeral Home in Nashville. And the graveside service will be at Forest Hill Cemetery on Wednesday, November 8th at 11 a.m. And our prayers go out to Nell and her family. She served the county for a very dedicated employee for many, many years. Also, at the last joint school board commissioners meeting, it was suggested by, I believe, our chairman that we continue the meetings every 6 months that were part of a 3-year agreement that has now expired. So I just wanted to get input from the commissioners on when y'all would like to meet with them again. That might be something you can discuss when you meet with the chairman and the vice chairman, and let us know at the next meeting.
What has been, what months were we meeting in?
April and November.
April and November, okay. All right, so we need to get started on, okay.
So we'll have something hopefully by the next meeting as to when that meeting occurs. It may end up being in early December, but we'll try to get it as soon as possible.
Yeah, but it doesn't expire until we meet this fall.
No, it expired July 31st. I mean, July 1st, yeah. It was 3 years from July 1, 14 to June 30th, 17. But the commissioners and the school board agreed at that last meeting in April to continue the 6-month meetings.
Bill, that started when we had the arbitration, not when we did anything about funding.
Yeah, I understand that, but in that, we agreed that we would meet twice a year.
Correct.
So we have met once, I mean, the total 2 boards, once in 17.
That's correct. And that's
So
what,
I'm saying that is, we do another meeting.
right. The board decided that at our last joint meeting. We're just gonna go ahead and schedule it. We'll take care of scheduling that with you. Anything else, Mr. Lamb?
No, that's it.
Any comment from board members before I ask for a closed session? I'd like to entertain a motion for a closed session to cover matters of attorney-client privilege, economic development, and acquisition of real property, and I've added one item, personnel, as item number 4 in that closed session. Entertain a motion for approval to go into closed session.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw, second by Mr. Belfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Staff, do we anticipate any action on either of the first 3? When we completed the 4th one, we'll not have any action this month.
There may be something regarding the Jim Wren matter. Is that something that would need to be done in?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, there's a possibility we'll need to take public action regarding the tax billing matter.
That's the attorney-client privilege, item number 1?
Right.
Okay. All right.
But we're not sure, but I think it will.
I think it would be
Yeah.
approved in open session.
Yeah.
Press, welcome to stay till we finish up. Shouldn't be too long, or staff will notify you when we get through. All right. Stand adjourned to closed session.